I exposed my golden child brother at his rehearsal dinner. Was I wrong? The champagne glasses were clinking, laughter filled the air, and everyone kept telling me how lucky I was to have such an amazing brother. I sat there, nodding and smiling, while something dark twisted in my chest. For 28 years, I'd watched Daniel get everything handed to him on a silver platter while I scraped by on leftovers and empty promises. But that night, at his rehearsal dinner, surrounded by 200 guests who thought he walked on water, I finally snapped. What I did next would tear our family apart, and honestly, I'm still not sure if I regret it or if it was the most honest thing I've ever done. Let me take you back to where this all started, because you need to understand the full picture to judge whether I'm the villain or the victim in this story. My name is Sarah, and I'm the older sister by 3 years. Growing up, I thought every family worked the way ours did. I thought it was normal for parents to have a favorite. I thought it was normal to feel invisible in your own home. Daniel was born when I was 3. And apparently, that's when my parents decided they'd already invested enough energy in one kid. He was the golden child from day one. Literally, they called him their golden boy, their miracle, their perfect little prince. Me? I was just Sarah. Dependable Sarah. Responsible Sarah. Sarah who could handle things on her own because she was so mature for her age. When Daniel wanted piano lessons, they bought him a grand piano. When I asked for guitar lessons, they told me we couldn't afford it and handed me a $20 keyboard from a garage sale. When Daniel got a B on his report card, they'd have a family meeting about how to support him better. When I brought home straight A's, I got a distracted, "That's nice, honey," before they went back to discussing Daniel's soccer game. College was where it really hit me how deep this favoritism ran. I worked 2 jobs, took out massive student loans, and barely scraped by while getting my degree in accounting. Meanwhile, Daniel got a full ride from mom and dad to his dream school, a new car for graduation, and an apartment they paid for so he could focus on his studies. When I mentioned it wasn't fair, my mom actually looked confused and said, "But Sarah, you're so good at being independent. Daniel needs more support." I graduated with $60,000 in debt. Daniel graduated debt-free with a trust fund waiting for him. But I pushed it down, told myself to be the bigger person, convinced myself that maybe they were right. Maybe I was just naturally more capable of handling life's challenges. Then came the engagement. Daniel proposed to his girlfriend, Rachel, after dating her for just 8 months. Rachel's nice enough, I guess, though we've never been particularly close. But the way my parents reacted, you'd think he'd just won a Nobel Prize. They immediately offered to pay for the entire wedding, and I mean entire. They were talking about a $200,000 budget like it was pocket change. $200,000. Let that sink in for a moment. I got married 4 years ago in my parents' backyard with 50 guests and a budget of $8,000 that I paid for myself. When I'd asked if they could contribute anything, my dad said they'd gone through some financial difficulties and things were tight. I found out later that same year they'd taken Daniel on a 3-week tour of Europe as a graduation present. But okay, I thought, this is his wedding. This is a big moment. I can be happy for my brother. I can put aside my resentment and just be a supportive sister. I was even genuinely trying. I helped Rachel with wedding planning, showed up to dress fittings, did all the things a good sister-in-law should do. Then came the revelation that changed everything. 3 weeks before the wedding, I was at my parents' house helping my mom organize some old photos for a slideshow they were making for the reception. I went into my dad's office to use the printer, and that's when I saw the letter on his desk. It was from his financial advisor, and it was just sitting there, open, impossible not to see. The letter was discussing his retirement portfolio and mentioned a recent withdrawal of $50,000 for Daniel's business venture. I stood there staring at those words, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. $50,000 for a business venture I'd never even heard about? Meanwhile, 2 years ago, when I'd asked for $5,000 of a loan to help with a down payment on a house, they said no because they couldn't spare it. I shouldn't have, but I opened his laptop. It was already unlocked, and I told myself I just needed to understand. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Spreadsheets, bank statements, years of financial records. They'd been giving Daniel money consistently since he turned 18. Thousands of dollars every few months. Help with rent, help with car payments, random cash injections labeled as gifts. Meanwhile, I couldn't find a single transaction with my name on it after I'd turned 18, except for a $75 check they'd sent me for my birthday one year. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the email I found from my dad to his financial advisor from 6 months ago. In it, he wrote, and I quote, "We need to be strategic about supporting Daniel without Sarah knowing the full extent. She's always been self-sufficient and frankly a bit sensitive about these things. It's easier to help him quietly." A bit sensitive about these things? Like my feelings of being treated as a second-class child in my own family were just me being overly emotional? Like their systematic favoritism was something I was being unreasonable about noticing? I took photos of everything with my phone. Every spreadsheet, every bank statement, every email. I don't know why exactly. Maybe I knew even then that I'd need proof because no one would believe me otherwise. Daniel was too perfect, too beloved. I was just the bitter older sister who couldn't be happy for her brother. For 3 weeks, I sat on this information. It burned inside me like acid. I showed up to the wedding events with a smile plastered on my face while internally screaming. Every toast to Daniel's success, every comment about what a wonderful son he was, every proud look from my parents felt like another knife in my back. The rehearsal dinner was held at this gorgeous country club, the kind of place with crystal chandeliers and waiters in white gloves. My parents had invited everyone, not just the wedding party, but extended family, close friends, business associates. 200 people gathered to celebrate Daniel and Rachel's upcoming marriage. I sat at a table near the front, nursing my wine and watching my father give a speech about what an incredible man Daniel had grown into. "He's everything a father could hope for," Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. "Smart, kind, hardworking. He's never asked for anything, but he's earned everything he's gotten." Never asked for anything. The lie was so blatant, so egregious, that something inside me just snapped. My mom stood up next, talking about how Daniel had always been so independent, so driven, how they'd never had to worry about him because he was so capable of achieving his dreams on his own. The irony was suffocating me. I looked around the room at all these people buying into the mythology of perfect Daniel, and I thought about my own wedding, where half these people hadn't even bothered to show up. I thought about eating ramen for dinner for months at a time while working 2 jobs to get through school. I thought about every dismissal, every time I'd been told I was being dramatic or sensitive when I'd tried to point out the inequality. When my mom finished her speech, she asked if anyone else wanted to say a few words. Several people stood up and shared heartwarming stories about Daniel. Everyone laughed at all the right moments. It was like watching a perfectly scripted performance where everyone knew their lines except me. Then my mom looked at me and said, "Sarah, would you like to say something about your brother?" Everyone turned to look at me expectantly. 200 pairs of eyes, all waiting for me to continue the celebration of Daniel's wonderfulness. I stood up. I honestly hadn't planned what I was going to say. Maybe that was the problem, or maybe it was exactly what needed to happen. "Sure," I said, and my voice sounded strange to my own ears, too calm, too steady. I'd love to share some thoughts about my brother. I walked to the front where the microphone was. Daniel was smiling at me, that easy, confident smile he'd always had. Rachel looked beautiful and happy. My parents looked proud. And I looked at all of them and felt absolutely nothing but a cold, clear sense of purpose. Daniel is an incredible person, I started, and everyone nodded along. He's achieved so much in his 25 years, graduated from a prestigious university, started his own business, found the love of his life. He really is everything a son could be. I paused, letting that sink in. And the best part is, he did it all completely on his own. Right, Mom? Right, Dad? Daniel's success is entirely self-made. My mom's smile faltered just slightly. My dad shifted in his seat, but I kept going. I mean, it's truly inspiring how someone can work so hard and succeed so brilliantly without any help at all. Unlike some people who need support and assistance, Daniel has always been so independent. Isn't that what you said, Mom? That he's never asked for anything? The room was getting quieter. People were starting to sense that something was off. Daniel's smile was frozen on his face. "Sarah," my mom said quietly, a warning in her voice. But I was done being warned, done being silenced, done being the responsible one who kept the family peace. So I think everyone here should know exactly how remarkable Daniel's achievements are. For instance, did you know that he paid for his entire college education himself? Oh, wait, no, that was me. Daniel's education was fully funded by our parents. Easy mistake to make. "Sarah, stop!" My father's voice was sharp now, commanding, the voice he'd used when I was a child and he wanted me to fall in line. But I wasn't a child anymore. Did you all know about Daniel's business, the one he started last year? He told me he'd saved up the capital himself through hard work and smart investments. But actually, that $50,000 seed money, that came from Mom and Dad, along with the money for his apartment, his car, his living expenses for the past 7 years. The room was dead silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. Daniel's face had gone pale. Rachel was looking between us, confused and worried. My parents looked proud, and I looked at all of them and felt absolutely nothing but a cold, clear sense of purpose. "Meanwhile," I continued, and my voice was shaking now, but I couldn't stop. "I worked 2 jobs through college, graduated with $60,000 in debt, paid for my own wedding, and was told we couldn't afford family help because money was tight. But it turns out, money was only tight for one of the children in this family."
I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have the receipts, bank statements, emails, financial records. Years of systematic favoritism documented in black and white. Years of being told I was being sensitive or dramatic for noticing that my brother got everything while I got nothing. "How dare you?" My mother finally found her voice. She stood up, her face red, her hands shaking. "How dare you ruin your brother's special night with your jealousy and your bitterness? This is a celebration, and you're making it about you like you always do." Like I always do. The accusation was so backwards, so utterly disconnected from reality that I actually laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. "Mom, I've made everything about everyone else my entire life. I've been the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who never complained or caused problems. And where did it get me? Invisible, forgotten, treated like I don't matter while Daniel gets worshipped for existing." Daniel finally spoke up. "Sarah, I didn't know. I didn't know you felt this way. I didn't know they'd told you they couldn't help you. I thought you just didn't need it, that you wanted to be independent." I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and I could see he might actually be telling the truth. Maybe he genuinely hadn't known the full extent of the disparity. But that almost made it worse somehow, that he could be so oblivious to the inequality because he'd never had to think about it. That's the problem, Daniel. You never had to know. You never had to question whether you were loved or valued or important because it was always obvious that you were. Do you know what that's like? To grow up feeling like you're fighting for scraps of attention and approval while your sibling gets a feast. Rachel reached for Daniel's hand, and I saw the discomfort on her face. This wasn't what she'd signed up for. None of the guests had signed up for this. They had come for champagne and toasts, not a family intervention. "I'm sorry," I said, addressing the room now. "I'm sorry to ruin the festivities. I know this isn't the time or place. But when is the time?
When would it ever be okay to point out that I've been treated as lesser than my entire life? Tomorrow at the wedding? Next year at Christmas? Never? My Aunt Linda, my mom's sister, spoke up from her table. Sarah, honey, maybe you and your parents should discuss this privately. We've never discussed it privately because every time I've tried, I've been shut down or dismissed or told I'm imagining things. I looked at my parents. Right? How many times have I tried to talk to you about this, and every time you've made me feel crazy for even bringing it up? My father stood now, his face hard. You're making a scene. You're embarrassing this family. Whatever grievances you think you have, this is not the way to handle them. Then what is the way, Dad? Because I've tried every other way and nothing's changed. You want to know what's really embarrassing? Having to find out through financial records that my own parents think so little of me that they strategize about how to help my brother without me knowing, that they describe me as sensitive for noticing I'm being treated unfairly. I could see people in the audience pulling out their phones. Some were probably texting other family members. Some were probably recording. This would be all over family gossip within hours. The perfect family image my parents had cultivated was crumbling in real time. And part of me, the ugly part I wasn't proud of, was glad. I don't expect you to understand, I said, looking around the room one last time. Most of you probably think I'm a terrible person right now. Maybe I am. Maybe standing up for yourself after years of mistreatment makes you terrible. But I'm done pretending everything's fine. I'm done smiling through the pain. I'm done being invisible. I put the microphone down and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting. My mother was crying, people were talking over each other. Someone called my name, but I didn't turn around. I walked out of that country club and got in my car and sat there shaking for 20 minutes before I could even turn the key. The fallout was immediate and brutal. My phone started blowing up within minutes. Text messages, phone calls, voicemails, some from family members calling me selfish and cruel, some from a few cousins saying they'd noticed the favoritism too and asking if I was okay. My parents sent a joint message saying I was no longer welcome at the wedding and that they needed space from me to process my betrayal. My betrayal. Not their decades of unequal treatment, but my moment of honesty. Daniel called me 6 times. I finally answered on the 7th. Sarah, he said, and his voice was strained. Why? Why did you do it like that? Would you have believed me if I'd done it privately? I asked. Would anyone? Or would it have been dismissed as me being dramatic again? He was quiet for a long moment. I want to understand. Can we meet? Can we talk about this? I don't know if talking will help, Daniel. This isn't something that can be fixed with a conversation. This is 28 years of being second best, of being told my feelings don't matter, of watching you get everything while I got nothing and being expected to smile about it. I'll talk to them, he said. I'll make them see that it wasn't fair. I can give you money back. I can try to make it right. I don't want your money, Daniel. I never wanted your money. I wanted parents who cared about me as much as they cared about you. I wanted to matter, and no amount of money can fix that now. The wedding happened without me. I saw the photos on social media. It looked beautiful. Daniel and Rachel looked happy. My parents looked like the proud parents they'd always been, at least for one of their children. Some family members tagged me in comments defending my actions. Others posted vague statuses about family loyalty and airing dirty laundry. It's been 3 months now since that rehearsal dinner. 3 months of family division and angry phone calls and people taking sides. My parents still aren't speaking to me. They sent me a letter, an actual physical letter, outlining all the ways I'd hurt them and destroyed our family. They said I'd always been difficult and resentful and that they'd tried their best with me, but I'd never been satisfied. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am difficult and resentful. Maybe I should have handled it differently. Maybe I should have stayed quiet, should have protected the family peace like I always had. But here's what I know now that I didn't know 3 months ago. I'm done living my life trying to make people comfortable with their own bad behavior. I'm done being the bigger person when no one else has to be. Daniel and I have had a few conversations since then. He's been trying, I'll give him that. He's asked me to explain things to help him understand what it was like growing up in my shoes. He's even confronted our parents a few times, though from what I hear, those conversations didn't go well. He started to see the patterns I've been pointing out for years, but I don't know if our relationship can recover from this. How do you rebuild trust when it was never equally distributed in the first place? Some nights I lie awake wondering if I'm the villain in this story, if I took my pain and trauma and weaponized it in the worst possible way, if I destroyed something that could have been healed more gently. Other nights I feel nothing but relief that I finally told the truth, that I finally stopped pretending everything was fine when it never had been. The truth is, I don't know if what I did was right or wrong. I don't know if there are clean villains and heroes in this story or if we're all just damaged people hurting each other in the ways we learned from our own pain. What I do know is that I couldn't keep living the lie. I couldn't keep showing up to family events and pretending my heart wasn't breaking every time someone praised Daniel's independence or my parents' equal love for their children. I've started therapy. My therapist says I'm processing decades of complex trauma and that what I did at the rehearsal dinner was an emotional rupture after years of suppression. She says it's neither good nor bad, it just is. That I needed to be heard and I used the only method that felt available to me in that moment. I'm not sure that absolves me of ruining my brother's rehearsal dinner, but it helps me understand myself a little better. Would I do it again if I could go back? I honestly don't know. Part of me wishes I'd found a different way, a kinder way. Part of me thinks there was no other way. The gentle approaches had failed for 28 years and something had to break for anything to change. What I do know is that I'm not sorry for telling the truth. I'm sorry for the pain it caused, sorry for the timing, sorry that it had to happen that way. But I'm not sorry that people finally know what it was like to be the invisible child in a family that only had eyes for one son. My husband has been incredible through all of this. He's always known about the favoritism, has always supported me, but even he was shocked by the extent of it when I showed him the financial records. He tells me I did what I needed to do, that he's proud of me for standing up for myself. Some days I believe him. So here I am, 3 months later, still processing, still healing, still wondering if I'm the worst sister in the world or if I'm just someone who finally got tired of being treated as less than. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, messy and complicated like most family dynamics are. What matters now is figuring out who I am outside of this family drama, outside of being the responsible older sister who never causes problems. I'm learning to set boundaries, to advocate for myself, to believe that my feelings matter even when other people find them inconvenient. It's harder than it sounds. 28 years of training yourself to be small and quiet and undemanding doesn't disappear overnight. But I'm trying. And maybe that's all any of us can do. Try to be better, try to heal, try to build lives that feel authentic, even when the truth isn't pretty. Was I wrong to expose my golden child brother at his rehearsal dinner? I've asked myself that question 1,000 times, and the only answer I have is this. I was wrong about the timing and the method, but I wasn't wrong about the truth. And sometimes the truth is more important than keeping the peace.